what essentially Instagram is with a lot of people is you're giving them the opportunity to be their own PR agent, and they always go towards the glamorous, you know. And when anybody does show, you know, hashtag no filter, you know, if they really do that, like, oh, you're so brave, look at you, no makeup, you know.
Yeah.
They look good anyway. You look great. What are you doing? Oh my God, you don't have makeup on. You still look hot as fuck. You know what you're doing. I know what you're doing too. They're letting you know, and then they're feeding off that comment section. Ooh, just a little sitting there like it's a fresh stream of love. Like you're getting right up to the source as it comes out of the earth, and you're sucking that sweet,
lot of
sweet
emojis.
love water.
Emojis.
Yeah.
A lot of emojis.
Welcome back to Ohm's Law of Life. This is the YouTube channel where we take a clip that I found online and we apply Ohm's Law of Resistance to it. It's actually an expanded understanding of Ohm's Law of Resistance, where we're taking the law that has been applied strictly to electricity and we're developing it into a larger philosophy as to how it's affecting you on many different levels in your life and society as a whole. In this week's clip, we're going to be looking at Elon Musk and Joe Rogan having a conversation, and we've got Chris here with us to analyze the clip. How you doing this week, Chris? How you feeling about life in general? Pretty cold up here in Canada.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's been a cold week.
Yeah, minus 20. Lots of environmental resistance.
Yes, lots of environmental resistance on that end.
We're going to play the clip, and then we're going to come back and we're going to discuss it. So here we go, Joe Rogan and Elon Musk.
And I've often wondered whether or not our ultimate goal is to give birth to some new thing, and that's why we're so obsessed with technology. Because it's not like this technology is really, I mean, it's certainly enhancing our lives in a certain way, but ultimately, is it making people happier right now? Most technology, I would say no. In fact, you and I were talking about social media before this, about just not having Instagram on your phone and not dealing, and you feel better.
Yes, I think that one of the issues with social media that's been pointed out by many people is that I think maybe particularly Instagram, people look like they have a much better life than they really do.
Right.
So
by design.
Yeah, people are posting pictures of when they're really happy. They're modifying those pictures to be better looking. Even if they're not modifying the pictures, they're at least selecting the pictures for the best lighting, the best angle. So people basically seem they're way better looking than they basically really are.
Right.
And they're way happier seeming than they really are. So if you look at everyone on Instagram, you might think, man, there are all these happy, beautiful people, and I'm not that good looking, and I'm not happy. So I must suck, and that's going to make people sad. So when in fact, those people you think are super happy, actually not that happy. Some of them are really depressed. They're very sad. Some of the happiest seeming people, actually some of the saddest people in reality. And nobody looks good all the time. It doesn't matter who you are. No.
It's not even something you should want. Why do you want to look great all the time?
Yeah, exactly. So I think things like that can make people quite sad.
Well,
just by comparison, because you just sort of people generally think of themselves relative to others. We are constantly rebaselining our expectations.
Wasn't that a Thoreau quote? The comparison is a thief of joy.
Yeah. Well, happiness is reality minus expectations.
That's great too. But the comparison is a thief of joy really holds true to people. Is it?
Theodore Roosevelt.
Roosevelt. Fascinating.
For those who aren't aware of the history of this project, we actually started developing this larger philosophy of Ohm's Law in 2001. And I just wanted to read the very, very first page that was ever written when we started compiling this into a larger philosophy for Ohm's Law. Your mind has one primary function: to find and catalog potential differences in all of the information your senses input. It does this because knowledge of every difference is a potential source of power and energy. You either agree with a classification or disagree based on established relations. If you are unsure, the information remains unclassified, awaiting further verification through experience. If not easily assimilated, this function of judging against all other cataloged information creates mental resistance based on expectation, superstition, understanding, and awareness. That is why most are initially so judgmental when exposed to information for which they have no reference. And there's a little key that goes with this first page that has some definitions. Expectation, that which one believes they are entitled to. Superstition, fear based on ignorance. Understanding, a foundation from which to rise up, created and verified through experience. Awareness, knowledge of the impact actions have on others as well as the environment surrounding the individual. They're kind of seeing it in this clip, but if your mind can only catalog information and you're involuntarily doing it, and then you give children this device that is constantly inputting into their senses all these images of what they are not, what a recipe for disaster that's going to be on it. It's a shame generator, basically. It's a Bradshaw shame generator.
It's a blast from the past, hearing what we were like back then when we were just discovering this. The way our minds work, they're machines, and they are comparing everything. But on an evolutionary scale for hundreds of thousands of years, this way that our minds compare, it's essential for survival, and it's served us very well.
Especially the notion that if you're constantly categorizing potential differences because subconsciously you know they are either an energy source or they are a resistance to a void. So in that way, it's the only way that we survive.
That's exactly it. And again, when you go to the primary functions of a life form, you've got to secure and exploit an energy source of some type. And once you've been able to do that, your secondary function is to continue to look for an energy source to exploit while simultaneously avoiding any harsh environmental resistances. And so right through time, that was just how we maneuvered. And the fact that we look for differences in other humans is from the exact same evolutionary stance. Well, when we were, hundreds of thousands of years ago, while we were, evolving and hunting and gathering, we were looking at humans, and we were looking for humans that were succeeding. If you found a human that was healthy and was succeeding and was happy and had found a place where there was food and had found a place where maybe there weren't so many predators, maybe you moved out of the savannah where there were lions behind, every shrub that were attacking you. You were constantly on guard, you were injured, and you moved into an area where you saw people that were living happily. You instantly knew that this was a safer environment environmentally. You knew that there was going to be ample energy to exploit, to be able to consume, to be able to keep living. And so you knew that that was probably a better place to be. And it's interesting with the common human experience. Emotion is the bridge to action. It's through emotion that we do things. When we experience seeing somebody that is happy, we immediately think, oh, this person has ample access to energy resources and has a low resistance environment.
Yeah, they're in the potential constant reality. That's how we perceive it. If potential is constant and resistance decreases, current increases. So when you see people on social media that are going on trips and they're at Disney and they're at the Caribbean, you assume that their resistance is low and they've got all of this energy to do these things with, because that's just what they're projecting. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
Our minds are being tricked because they are set up to do just that comparison on resistances and potentials. And all of a sudden the environment changes to where now we're watching things on a screen and we're not seeing the entire picture. But our brains don't quite understand that. They're still just looking for comparisons. And so even though we live in a societal circuit now where we all have ample protection, we have ample shelter, we have, ample food, no one really in the North American society, there are exceptions, but very minimal. Most of us don't worry about where our next meal is coming from. And we don't worry about having shelter. And again, there are exceptions to that. But for the most part, for the general public that is on social media, this isn't a life or death situation. We all have an abundance in North America, but still our brains are still doing that same comparison. It doesn't matter that we're all fine. Our brains are still looking for the optimal advantage, and that's just been built into us for survival. And we haven't had time to adapt out of that. And being in this more of an artificial environment because of the societal structures that we've created, we find ourselves having to deal with things like the emotions of envy. So it's not even enough that you have shelter and food, but someone else has maybe better shelter, a better house.
The digital landscape is not the actual analog landscape of reality. But we still categorize everything we're seeing through that digital landscape as being the same. But it's not at all. And that's the trick, because if potential is constant and resistance decreases, current increases. So when you project this idea that you are in a low resistance environment, because really the 5-minute video that you're filming is just a film shoot, but all the people that are watching are in a phase where if potential is constant and resistance increases, current decreases. So all they're seeing is all of the things that they don't have. That's the increased resistance that they're perceiving, when everyone else is just projecting that they have low resistance, and you can't figure out that it's really an illusion. You perceive that as mental resistance to yourself. And if you allow that mental resistance to increase to the point where it is constant, then you drop out of the potential constant reality to the resistance constant reality. And in the event that you become so depressed by what you've been exposed to that you stop acting, because if resistance is constant and current decreases, potential decreases, eventually you just are so overwhelmed by all of this resistance that you're inputting, you're just perceiving it as, well, look at all the stuff they have that I don't have. I'm a loser. And then eventually you just stop acting at all. And then you're in the shame spiral. You are in a very, very bad place when you can't disconnect from that device that is forcing you to categorize all of this expectational references that you can't compete with, because you're trying to compete with something that's an illusion to begin with, because the person projecting it actually isn't in the low resistance environment. They're just pretending they are.
Being aware that the mind is doing this is the first step. It is going to push these emotions outwards, these feelings of inadequacy. They are just going to be there because that is what the mind does. It is part of the survival programming of the mind. And to just be aware that, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm having this feeling right now, but I'm not really in a situation where I'm in survival mode. The bear's not coming out of the cave. You just don't get to eat the same sandwich that Tom's eating right now at the local deli downtown. And if you really want that sandwich, well, you can probably go there someday, but it's not life or death. And so these emotional responses to action are still going to flood in. We have to be aware of that and be able to see it for what it is. It's just, your mind is a tool, and that tool is just doing what it was designed to do. It is in survival mode all of the time to keep you alive, looking for a happier, high energy, low resistance environment. And when it sees it, it is going to give you an emotional response. It is going to drive you to want to change. But more than likely, everything is just fine. And like you said, what you're seeing on social media, most of it's an illusion. The mind cannot distinguish between the illusion and reality, and you're going to get those responses.
The time frame for adaptation in nature is long, and we are being hit with so much in such a short period of time that we can't possibly biologically adapt through the 100,000 generations of adaptation that we would get that have happened in the last 20 years with the invention of the smartphone.
Yeah, we're having changes every couple of years. The entire world's changing. Just in our lifetimes, it has completely changed. And that's just 50 years. And so, mentally, we have to try and become consciously aware that our bodies and minds were designed in a very certain way over hundreds of thousands of years. And now we are in a completely different environment. And we are going to need to be very aware of our responses within this new environment. And hopefully, be able to navigate through it. But the responses we're giving or receiving from our minds, they're completely natural. They're there for protection. And everyone has their struggles. And happiness isn't a thing that is supposed to be there all of the time. And so you're able to move around it. But when you can't do that and that mind's sort of just on auto mode, just doing that comparison, it's going to lead to a lot of negative emotions. And that's just, again, that call to action. Negative emotions are there to get us to react.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you've seen here, be sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel. It's Ohm's Law of Life. We do a video every week showing how Ohm's Law of Resistance goes so far beyond electricity into actual philosophy. And we've put together this system. The graphics that you're seeing in this video are called Ohm's Wheels of Life. They're a system that we've created that shows the cause-effect result relationship of the three variables of potential, current, and resistance. Because once you can start seeing them in the greater world around you, you'll understand that there is a fundamental pattern behind all of the activity that's going on in your life. If you'd like more information about this, be sure to visit Seniorthinktank.ca. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.